Video 6, Installing the Energizer and Grounding System for an Electric Fence. In this video, we will show how to install a solar-powered Energizer and the grounding system on an electric fence. The electric fence wires have been installed and the wires are connected. See our previous videos for these steps. For our Energizer, we will be using a Parmac 12 solar-powered Energizer, since we do not have any power at this site. For our grounding system, we will be using 3 6-foot galvanized steel ground rods. And for making our connections, we will need some insulated burial wire and ground wire, along with ground rod clamps and any necessary fencing tools. Where you install your Energizer will often depend on what type of Energizer you will be using. If you are using an AC-powered Energizer, you may be limited to where power is available closest to the fence. If you are using a solar-powered Energizer, you'll need to consider where the solar panel will get the most sun exposure. The Energizer can be hung using heavy-duty screws on a sturdy post. On the back of the Energizer, measure the distance between the holes on the Energizer, then mark the post at the height that you will be hanging the Energizer, making 2 marks at a distance to place the screws. Using a drill, screw in the heavy-duty screws about 3/4 of the way in, leaving just enough of the screw head out to hang the Energizer securely. When hanging the Energizer, make sure it's firmly secured to the post so it won't get knocked over or blown off in a strong wind. To install our grounding system, we will be using galvanized ground rods along with ground wire and ground rod clamps for connecting our rods. Using galvanized or copper ground rods can prevent rusting and is necessary for good electric fences. We do not recommend using other metal types for rods. For ground rods, you want roughly 6 to 8 feet of ground rod per joule of energy the Energizer puts out. For installing the ground rod system, it is best to check the specific installation manual that comes with the Energizer you purchased to ensure you have a proper setup. For this fence, we will be driving 3 ground rods, each 6 feet into the ground, for a total of 18 feet of grounding. We will be running our ground rods in a straight line along the fence, spacing the ground rods about 10 feet apart. Using a post pounder, pound each post into the ground, leaving approximately 6 inches of the ground rod sticking out of the ground for making the connections. To connect the ground rods, use ground wire and ground rod clamps to secure the wire to the rod. Slip the ground rod clamps over the ground wire ahead of time, 3 in this case for the 3 ground rods we will be connecting. Unloosen the clamp screw and slip the ground rod clamp over the ground rod and wire. Hand tighten the clamp screw to secure the wire against the rod, then use a wrench to tighten the clamp down securely for a tight connection. Wrap the tail of the wire around the ground rod or kink it so it doesn't slip out. Run the length of the ground wire between all the ground rods using ground rod clamps to secure the wire connections to the rods. You can bury the ground wire, or if it has any chance of contacting the electric wires on the fence, insulated burial wire can be used. Once all the ground rods are connected together, use an insulated wire to connect your ground rod system to your Energizer ground port. Connect the insulated wire to the first ground rod that is closest to the Energizer, and using a ground rod clamp to secure the connection. Run the insulated wire up to the Energizer and secure it in place with staples if needed, just being careful not to puncture the insulated wire. With the Energizer still turned off, unscrew the cap to the grounding terminal and hook the ground wire on the terminal and retighten the cap to secure the ground wire connection to the Energizer. Now that the Energizer wire is connected down to the ground rods, our electric fence is properly grounded. With some fences, this may be sufficient grounding to run an electric fence. However, if you are building a fence in a drier region like the West, or for a more effective fence design, adding a ground wire to your fence will improve the overall grounding in your fence system. With our fence design, we have included a ground wire using the woven wire on the existing fence. So in this case, we have one last step, which is to connect our ground rod system to our fence woven wire that we designed to use as a ground in this alternating hot and ground fence system. Run a ground wire from the ground rod system to the fence woven wire and secure the wires together using wire tying techniques or a NiCoPress tap or joint clamp for a more secure connection. Now we have a grounding system flowing from our Energizer to our ground rods and the woven wire on the fence. Before connecting the Energizer to the offset hot wires on the electric fence, we are going to first install a lightning diverter that will run between the Energizer and our fence and help protect the Energizer in the event of lightning striking the fence. For smaller projects like chicken coops or for fences that may not be prone to lightning strikes, lightning diverters may not be necessary. But for larger fences and expensive Energizers, a lightning diverter can help save hundreds of dollars that you don't have to spend replacing an Energizer if the fence is struck by lightning. To install the lightning diverter, you will want to hang the diverter near the Energizer and between the fence where you will connect your Energizer to the hot wires. There are instructions that come in the pack to explain how to install the diverter, and these should be followed to be sure that the diverter is properly installed and adjusted. After mounting the diverter, use an insulated wire to run a connection from the Energizer's positive terminal to the lightning diverter's positive terminal. A second insulated wire will run from the lightning diverter's positive terminal to the fence hot wires. Connect the insulated wire to the fence hot wire and use a tap, joint clamp, or wire tying techniques to secure the connection. Be sure to follow the instructions on the lightning diverter before turning on the Energizer to ensure it's properly adjusted. From the lightning diverter, a ground wire will also need to be connected from the ground terminal on the diverter to the ground rod system. We now have wire connections running from the Energizer to the lightning diverter and the diverter to the fence. A ground wire is running from the diverter to the ground system. Now that we have the Energizer, lightning diverter, and grounding system to the fence set up, we are ready to turn on the Energizer and test the fence. Turn the Energizer on. You should hear clicking, and with some Energizers, see a flashing light or see a dial go up to indicate the Energizer is on. Next, you'll want to test the fence hot wires to check the voltage using a fence voltage meter or fence tester. Check the voltage on each of the fence hot wires for each section around the fence, along with testing the gate offset wires. You should have consistent voltage flowing through the entire circuit of the electric fence. For any troubleshooting questions, consult the Fence Energizer manual, or for more information on maintenance and troubleshooting electric fences, see our Video 7, Maintenance and Troubleshooting Electric Fences.